to grab the links and send it to people everywhere.
Alright. Oh, by the way, you already, like, pre-recorded, the thing.
The gameplay of Fortuna.
Alright.
Alrighty. Alrighty. What the fuck?
What?
Getting an error message. The fuck? Oh. Gonna experience buffering. Good grief. How is it that it's poor?
Like, wait, is it like live stream itself, or?
It's YouTube being YouTube again. It's saying it has a very poor connection to OBS. So people are going to be experiencing buffering.
The OBS system is literally right there. Hey, if there's anyone there in the chat, can you see just fine, or? Also, I love the thumbnail. I love the thumbnail, by the way.
Thanks. I made it myself. However, it is too wordy, as as Stan would say.
Yeah, understandable.
And I had sent all of the links, I believe. Alrighty. So, let us introduce ourselves.
Hey there, this is JustAFan17 here for the, what number is this one?
8-2.
8-2 time here on this podcast. Hope you're not getting tired of my voice or getting annoyed by the mic.
Alright then. Everyone knows me. I am the host of this wonderful podcast known as the Anime Guy. And the lovely British woman that you have just heard sing aloud is my wonderful friend JustAFan17.
Hey.
And anyways, as we go through our topic of discussion today, which is Faunus racism, gameplay of Warframe shall be in the background that also has relevance to this particular topic. And as anyone could imagine, have we actually ever seen any Faunus suppression for the past 7 volumes? Like, at all?
There was one scene, but it's a very blink and you'll miss it scene. Which is basically, you know that bar that Toad goes to, when he's trying to find, one of the huntsmen?
Oh, you mean Noodle Bar guy? From Mistral?
Yeah, one of the sign, there's a sign that says no Faunus. and that's it. That is literally the only sign that even indicates that Mistral is a very anti-Faunus place.
Oh yeah, there's also only one sign in Atlas for one establishment too, but we don't know what that is because we don't go into it.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah, but they're very blink and you'll miss it, situation. But they're very blink and you'll miss it, like, references,
Yes.
Like, anime. Have you seen the anime, have you seen the, anime, Rise of the Shield Hero?
Yes. I had just finished binge watching with my my little sister and my mom. They both want Raftalia and Philope plushies right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so you know about the demi-humans, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and how they're treated.
Oh yes, very much.
Yeah. Yeah, the demi-humans in the Rise of the Shield Hero, they're basically the Faunus if they were actually better written, Because, like, in the Rise of the Shield Hero, spoilers for those whom haven't watched it, but the demi-humans, they are essentially part animal, part humans, hence the name demi-humans. However, they are treated very badly. In fact, Raftalia, one of the main female protagonists, was essentially a slave before she was taken in by Nelfree.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the very first scenes she's in, Naofumi, he goes to a restaurant, but it's a restaurant that really, well, I mean, it's written in Japanese, but in the subtitled version you can see it says no demi-humans allowed. And of course Raftalia, she's very worried because, of course, because of course the sign says her kind aren't allowed inside. She doesn't want to get Naofumi in trouble. But Naofumi just says fuck that and just brings her in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course we see other cases of racism, like for example, Melty, aka Mine, aka the anime version of Monica Rial. Yes, I made that reference. I will not apologize for it. Basically being a racist, who thinks that demi-humans are below her. And, you have the fact that demi-humans are essentially treated very, very poorly.
Yeah. So currently, what's being shown right now on screen, if you're in the Discord live, this guy is known as Rwby. His parents died, and because the Corpus have a lot of forced the Solaris to take out huge loans for parts in order to work, because his parents died, their debt fell onto him. Typical IRS stuff. Except it's much worse here.
Don't want to see nothing bad happen to us workers. But there was a time she had another name. Vox Solaris. The voice of the resistance. The voice of Solaris United. She stood up for us. Said how wrong the soul is. She always said Solaris United was all of us. But it weren't nothing without her. When the trouble happened, Neff did try to identify her. What he did to the others. What happened?
I'll be back real quick.
She's always been kind to me. What happened to them was never her fault.
So yeah, anyone in the chat, if you have any questions, you can put them down, and we'll see. And if you want, I can answer them for you. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the chat. And
Alrighty, I'm back.
oh, you're back anyway?
Yeah, it was just my little sister.
She's
Alright.
She is. A blizzard in a firestorm.
So, do you want to explain that scene just now?
Alright, so in Warframe, this place is called Fortuna, or a corpus in internment camp. This is where people have been oppressed financially, and if you're oppressed, and let's just say that these cyborgs, their parts, they can get. Most of them are mostly robotic. And you see that tower in the distance before my vision, and that tower distance, that helps create the frozen environment on Venus. And right now, Thursby has asked my character, or the Warframe, the Warframe Tenno, to go searching for goods in order to sell them to pay off his debt for his monthly quota.
And what happens if he doesn't get his monthly quota?
Let's just say it's his repo.
Sorry, what was that? Let's just say what?
Let's just say their version of repo is different compared to the actual IRS.
Oh.
Yeah.
Something tells me it's gonna involve something very brutal, essentially.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that?
I just know it.
But yeah, the Corpus are a faction that are very much very imperialist society that runs on very high capitalism with very, very little regulation. But it's the kind of regulation you need in order to not abuse people. But, you know, this is, oppression.
Yeah, real oppression, not like the fake one that Rwby likes to pretend exists.
I know, right? It's like, what if the miners were like this? They were oppressed financially like this because they had to rent equipment from Jacques, but they have to get it off of loans. But the Atlas banks decide, let's repo this stuff from you to keep you from working, and to keep you from working, you'll get into bigger debt, and thus, and the only reason why the Atlasians only go after the Faunus is because they're stereotypically thieves, and or cannot pay off loans, despite the fact that, if you financially ruin someone, they can't pay off their debt, and if they cannot pay off their debt, they cannot work if they do not have the equipment needed. That's essentially the entire... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, isn't that like what the southern farmers they used to, like, after slavery quote unquote ended, like southern farmers, they would like sell, I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, because like it's been a while since I brushed up on American history, but didn't they like used to like sell some parts of the farms to black workers, and they would essentially be brought into like this kind of world of constantly working, but like constantly needing to work off their debts, and essentially being kept in as slave labor. So essentially it was legalized racism.
Yes, that is called sharecropping. It's where a black farmer, because he can only know how to farm, because, that's what they've been all their lives, can now purchase the land from a former slave owner, use that land to farm. However, unfortunately, the farmer can only get equipment and stuff from the original slave owner, and has to get off a credit. And if that credit cannot get paid off, they'll be repoed. Like the IRS. Like, just imagine if Atlasian banks did that for Faunus miners, and only Faunus miners. Wouldn't that help establish Atlas as one of the most racist places ever, as quote-unquote Miles have said?
Yeah. Well, yeah, what if they did that in Mistral? You know, like maybe it was like there, but it's like on a smaller scale, and then we get to Atlas, and then you realize, holy shit, you know?
Yeah, or better yet, given the fact that Atlas is another stereotypical America, why not have it that only individual site managers are the only ones doing this type of stuff, and Jacques is not a racist, because everyone knows how much he's a Trump stand-in. He's not a racist, but he's like, you know, there's a reason why I don't do faunus slavery of a people. It gets nothing done. The people are miserable, which will those people being miserable will lead to grim attacks. If the grim attacks, they cannot, you know, if the grim attack, production will be low because, well, the grim are attacking.
Yeah. Although speaking of grim attacking, sorry to go off a little bit here, but like, shouldn't the grim technically not even be in Atlas? Because it was set in the world of Remnant, Atlas was too fucking cold for even the grim to survive.
But just a fan. Everyone knows Sayla could use magic to magically change the aforementioned grim into ice resistance.
Yeah, then why the fuck didn't she do that, oh, I don't know, 1,000 years beforehand? Because if we're to believe Crow in the recent world of... Because, like, keep in mind, the world of Remnant is talking about recent history. So it's basically like from, let's say, 100 years to the modern society of Remnant. If that was the case, why did Salem decide to do it now and only now? You know, especially when you consider Atlas is like basically one of them, like one of, if not the most powerful nation in all of Remnant. You would think she'd want to get rid of that one first, you know?
But just a fan. We want to get the point across to Osmond by attacking Vale, his HQ.
Yeah, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, if she really wanted to instill fear in the world, she would have gone after fucking Atlas. Because, you know, because as she said, she wanted to show the, like, you know, as she said, she wanted to divide the world. She wanted to strike fear into the people of Remnant. What better way than to show literally the most powerful country in all of Remnant fall? And not just that, keep in mind that Atlas is basically a floating island on top of another city. Can you imagine how many fucking people would die? Like how many people would be in fear after watching like literally Atlas fall on top of Mistral?
Oh my.
Like that would have sent out the message 10 times better than Beacon. I mean, I kind of definitely chose Beacon because it was like Ozpin's like place, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's his
and so,
headquarters.
Yeah, and so you can kind of argue that maybe Salem, she wanted to target that place first because it's like take out Ozpin, take out the leader, and then you have like some time to kind of strike at the other places. But honestly, if I was her, I'd just say screw Beacon and just go to fucking Atlas. You know, just take out the biggest country in the world, so then every other place loses their biggest and most powerful ally.
Yeah, it's as if these characters are just stupid for the sake of the plot, especially the Atlas military, which I can go on to another rant about. But given the fact
let's not get into another rant.
Hello.
Yeah, but
oh, hey, Sai.
But yeah, oh, hey, Cinder.
Don't worry, guys. It's not the Cinder you're thinking. It's the actual good Cinder.
Yeah, I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to Faunus racism, am I the only one who thinks that Faunus racism doesn't make much sense to even begin with?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense in context of the world. because
Yeah, because like you would think that it would be the faunus ruling the world, not the
humans?
not the humans, especially when you consider the advantages being a faunus gives you. You know, like they are literally just people with animal parts. That's it. Like, I mean, if there was like some drawbacks, then yeah, I can kind of get it. But it's like, for the most part, they seem to act very normally, aside from like a few quirks. Like, for example, like Blake liking like a lot of fish and shit, you know. But that's not really much of a drawback. It's just like, oh, she likes fish because she's part cat. Lol, get it?
yeah. And if racism were to exist in this world, like, wouldn't it make a lot more sense if it was actually homophobic? Because given the fact that the LGBTQ community is so minuscule around the world compared to the amount of black people in the world.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you consider like a remnant, like, you know, the world of remnant as a whole, because it's like, you know, oh, the entire city, like all of the four nations that basically boxed into, like, with the exception of maybe Atlas because it's literally a floating fucking city in the sky. It's essentially like all four nations have essentially been like boxed in, you know. Like, it would make more sense for homophobia to exist because, you know, oh, it's like they need more children, and unfortunately, gay and lesbian, like gay people, like gay men and lesbian women, they can't give that because, you know, like they can't produce children. Like, I kind of had this problem in The Last of Us too. And before I go on a big fucking rant, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. The Last of Us 2 sucks. Deal with it. But like basically one of the biggest problems I had was that, like, oh, there were like random homophobic guys. But it's like, when you think about it, like, in a way, they're in the right. Because, especially when you consider the fact that Ellie has, like, potentially has a gene that makes her immune to the virus. And as far as we're aware, she's the only person immune to this, like, to this virus. So, you know, so like, in a way, it kind of makes sense for the homophobia to kind of, like, in a weird way, be correct. Because it's like, you know, like, humanity is literally on its last legs. Like, you know, they need to reproduce more people, and unfortunately, a lesbian couple cannot give that to them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Last of Us 2, like, if the story of The Last of Us 2, like, had an element where it's like, you know, Ellie is like, you know, she's the only person immune to the virus, and, you know, and, you know, you can kind of have Joel, like, kind of say, hey, you know, maybe it's genetic, you know? Like, it's a genetic thing, and so, like, maybe if you have kids, and some of them have the immunity, and they go on to have kids, like, it would essentially be, one day, humanity would essentially be free from the virus. Of course, the problem is that, like, Ellie, she likes women, she doesn't like men, and that could have been, like, a very interesting dilemma, you know? Should Ellie give up her own happiness in order to,
Save humanity?
Save humanity? Yeah, should she give that up, or should... Because, like, in a way, Joel can't really say, oh, you have to give up your happiness, because in a way, that would be very hypocritical for him. Because, you know, he literally let Ellie live in order to... And essentially also doomed humanity as a whole as well.
Yeah.
You know, by letting Ellie live. So, like, in a way, he can't, like say, oh, you have to give up your happiness, because Ellie could have very easily said, that's hypocritical of you, because I'm still alive, you know? You let me live, and you knew I had to die. So, you know, so I think, like, that's what I think the story of The Last of Us should have been. It should have been, like, you know, should Ellie have to sacrifice her own who should sacrifice their happiness, Ellie or Joel, you know? Like, should Ellie die in order to become a vaccine, or should Ellie just, like, you know, like, have to reproduce with men in order to create more children, and then their children would have children to essentially create a world where humanity would be immune from the virus, you know?
Yeah, using her as breeding stock.
Yeah, that would have been like a more interesting dilemma.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with, and that same thing could have applied to Ruby as well, even with Faunus as well, because you would expect the Faunus to, like, like, given the fact that animals have a high fertility rate, you would imagine that, they'd be, like, fucking like animals.
Yeah, like, this is actually something that is very well done in an anime called Beastars. I'm not sure if you've seen the anime.
I have heard of
haven't you
Beastars
seen it?
and its plot. Sounds really good. I just have yet to watch it myself. Seems
Alright,
interesting.
Yeah, but basically a bit of a spoiler here. But the main female character, Haru, she's a rabbit, and she likes to, sleep with people. Like she gets it around a lot. In fact, like she's kind of bullied because of her reputation. But then when you realize the actual reason why she likes having sex, it's in a way kind of sad. Like I'm not going to spoil it here for you, anime, because I think it's best if you go see it yourself. But
Well, I'll read it.
Yeah, but trust me when I tell you, when you hear the reason, I think you'll be very, very shocked, and also feel very sorry for Haru in a way. Like very, very sorry for Haru.
Ah.
Yeah. And speaking of Beastars, he also manages to do racism much better than in Ruby. Remember when I told you that, one thing I don't understand is why the Fortnite haven't exactly taken over Remnant?
Yeah.
Because, they're, because, all of their, advantages don't seem to come with disadvantages.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Beastars, both carnivores and herbivores, the two species in Beastars, they both have their weaknesses and strengths,
Yeah.
So for example, carnivores, they are constantly under pressure to keep, their, basic instincts in check. In fact, there are a lot of instances where, some carnivores are actually, taking these pills, which basically decreases their it basically
It's a protein
like-
supplement because
Yeah.
because omnivores and carnivores need meat, which is
Mm-hmm.
protein. So they're taking so is it like they're taking protein protein?
it's basically meant to keep their instincts in check, if you get what I mean.
So essentially so instead of providing them the nutritional benefits, they're just starving themselves to death.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, character even the main character Legoshi, a way he also carnivores, they try to make themselves seem less threatening. So, for example, the mayor of the town, he has had plastic surgery in order to make himself look less scary, so then he can be voted in. And keep in mind, he's a lion, So he's essentially the king of the jungle. Is essentially even the king of the jungle isn't immune from this, And then you have characters like Legoshi who tells Louis, another main character, that he literally cuts his nails every single day, but they keep growing back quicker and longer,
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like it's Zootopia, but in a much, much more realistic fashion.
Yeah, it's basically Zootopia, but it's a more mature version of Zootopia. And if it was done in Japan,
Yeah. But
yeah.
But yeah, even Zootopia did racism a lot better between carnivores
Yeah.
and herbivores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where it's especially when you hear Nick's backstory, it's very heartbreaking. It's oh, he just wanted to be in the Boy Scouts, but those little those little bastards didn't believe that he would be honest.
Yeah, because of stereotypes of foxes. What's the stereotype of a fox in almost all cultures? It's a sly, clever
That's like,
trickster.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of the same with the legacy as well, where it's like, you know, he's a wolf, you know? And so like people expect him to like be this scary, intimidating guy, but in reality, he's very soft spoken, you know? Like he can get his hands dirty, but for the most part, he will like avoid trying to like start a fight or even like get into trouble in general. Like in fact, there's this one scene where it's like there's some where it's like after slight spoiler alert, but like after like a herbivore is murdered by a carnivore in the school. Like basically the tensions between the two groups, like they're kind of like they're rising like a lot to the point where they're both like basically blaming each other, like the other for the person's death. And like it gets to the point, and it gets to like such a point where like Rwby, like not Rwby, Legacy basically shouts at them to stop. And of course afterwards, like he just kind of like does that thing where it's like, shit, did I just say that? You know?
Yeah.
And then like one of the carnivores actually like comes up to him and says, you know, hey, bring your fucking neck down here and I'll show you who's tougher. And he's like, okay. And like in his head, Legacy is like, okay, how can I make myself lose but make it very convincing?
Ah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's very subtle, but it shows you like just how much this society has affected everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, also your thing has stopped playing. But like, it was very. Beastars is a very, very. It's like if you ever want to, like, not just write racism in general, but want to know how to write oppression, like, you know, you should see Beastars.
Well, that and Zootopia. But
yeah, Beastars, Zootopia, hell, even Rise of the Shield Hero. You know, they do oppression much better than Rwby has ever done, you know?
Yeah, and keep in mind, when it comes to oppression in Rwby, you're just told about it and preached to about it by characters rather than shown it. The only person who has shown that he has any racism within him is Cardin Winchester, and let's face it, he's an asshole to everyone.
Yeah, like, even then, like, you can even argue he's not being a racist, he's just because, like, he seems to bully, like, he bullies Jean, a human, and he seems to bully the rest of his team. So, for all we know, he's just an asshole to everyone. So, if anything, he's less of a racist, because, like, he's treating everyone, because, like, he treats everyone equally, like an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, weirdly enough.
But just,
yeah,
what about Chuck? Isn't she a racist? I mean, he put the honest workers through all this hell.
Really? Then how come he fucking employs the fathers? No, seriously, like, tell me, how, like, in the past, did you see him employing fathers? Like, you know, like, if there was a scene where he's, like, you know, where it's, like, one of the fathers, like, accidentally, like, makes a mistake, and he, like, basically, basically says, you stupid fathers, like, you know, why can't you fuckers get anything right or something, then, you know, you can make that argument, but, like, we're never shown how he's racist. We're just like, oh, he's an evil businessman. Okay, but how does that make him evil to the Faunus in particular?
I don't, it's because, he's the Trump allegory! No, wait, that's not it! He's not the Trump allegory! He's just a racist!
Honey, it's either an allegory, or, like, I don't care if it's a fucking allegory. Like, if they have to make a fucking allegory for a person to make him evil, that's not good enough. They're basically just, like, not even a good copy and pasting of a real-life figure. Like, me personally, whenever I write my stories, I don't like to have them have, like, I don't like them to be like based off of real people. Like, you know, like I'll have them like have like a few traits of certain people, and then it's like, oh, but they have like traits of other people as well. You know, I don't like to make a single person an allegory, basically, because that's fucking stupid. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, for example, King Joffrey. Sorry, not King Joffrey. Like Cersei, for example, she's like, I kind of see her as like, you know, because according to George R. R. Martin, like, sorry, not Cersei, like Games of Thrones in general, that actually, like, it's basically based off the War of the Roses, and you know, and you can see like some of the parallels here and there, but at the same time, you know, it's not like a straight word for word thing, you know. It's not like, oh, every person, like, plays a set... Oh, like, you can see every person, like, so, for example, you can see, Jon Snow is King George III or whatever, you know? No, instead it's like, you know, yes, they are, like, you know, they have some similarities to people, but they are not directly based off of them, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, oh, they share some similarities. Okay, that's really good. Well, like, if you want to do a character like that, that is fine, you know? But, like, to say, oh, a certain person is racist because, oh, their real-life equivalent is racist is not good enough. You know, it's like me saying, Jean hates prostitutes because his voice actor / self-insert, Miles wrote in a tweet that like basically administering prostitutes, you know.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. But another thing that bothers me is that we're constantly told, oh, the finest mines are the mining conditions are so terrible. Well, excuse me, mining has always been a terrible job to work. It's backbreaking, but you get paid the big bucks for it. Because guess what? Your life is in mortal danger 24/7. Because at any point, a support beam could just fall and break someone's leg or head. And let's take that a step further. It could also cause a cave-in if it's not still stable enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like...
Not a bad cave-in as a golf club, though.
Aw, you had to make the reference, didn't you, DJ?
Yes.
Always late as ever.
Although, like, speaking of mining, like, do you want to know something that kind of pisses me off?
What?
Is that, like, okay, like, Blake, she talks about this mining accident.
Who, Ilya?
Like, you know, yeah, and it seems to be tied to Ilya, but we don't get any context to it, you know? Like, we don't get anything like, maybe they knew that the mining was gonna, like, fall or something like that. In fact, it even said that it was an accident, you know? That, like, apparently a miner tripped while carrying some agitated dust crystals. And I'm like, how is that Jacques' fault?
How is that the fault of racism?
Like, we don't even know how dust is processed. So for all we know, it could have been the miner's fault for not... Like, it could have been, like, the miner's fault for handling it so recklessly, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it gets me really pissed off, because, okay, there is... this is, like, a UK reference, so, like, I don't know if anyone will actually know it, but have you ever heard of the disaster of Aberfane?
No, I have not, actually.
Okay, there is, it's a Welsh town, I think it's in the south of Wales, if I'm remembering correctly. If I've got that wrong, do tell me in the chat below. But basically, Aberfane was a mining community. It was, like, basically, in England, it's basically, basically nearly every man or young man worked in the mines, or if you didn't work in the mines, your neighbor did, or you knew someone in the community who did work in the mines. Anyway, Aberfane, like, the mines in Aberfane, like, they were becoming, like, miners were getting, like, very, very worried, because, of course, there were lots of landslides there, and they were getting more and more worried because it's like it was happening more often, and so they asked the the mine, the people who own the mines, like saying, hey, I think we should close this mine because, you know, like there are more landslides coming in and we don't think it's going to hold. And they were ignored for many, many years until I believe it was the year of 1968, I believe. Again, not 100% sure. There was a huge mine slide. And you want to know where that landslide hit?
That particular mining community.
It wasn't a mining community as a whole. It was the school. The primary school of Aberthane.
Oh no!
And that entire, like, from what I can recall, only 35 children survived. The rest of the children, they drowned under the muck, the mud of the mines. In fact, there were tales told of miners finding their own children dead.
Oh boy.
Because keep in mind, it was a mining community, which means essentially every man essentially worked in the mines. So if they had a family, chances were their child was dead. And probably the worst part about it is, if the mine had just held on for another day, and if it hit, like if the mine had just, if it collapsed the next day, all of the children would have been alive. Because on that day, it was the final day before half term, which is basically like a week's break from the rest of the term, essentially.
Damn.
And that day was the last day until half term. If the mine had just held on for at least until the afternoon, where all the children would have been gone by then, there would be no lost generation of Aberthane. And that's what the kids are now referred to nowadays, the lost generation, because it was literally an entire generation was wiped out.
Wow.
And there was a lot of controversy because of course, like the companies, they knew the mine was unsafe, but they didn't bother to close it. And to this day, they still haven't paid the family of the miners, the family of the children who died that day. Like
The government? What did they do? They didn't do any, they didn't do jack shit, I'm assuming.
nope. Even though the companies, they were government owned, keep in mind. This is during the time when nationalism was a very big thing in the UK.
But I'll call it off.
So even though there was a government investigation, to this day the family still aren't paid, and that is like a huge. Like, along with the Hillsborough disaster, I think it's one of the hugest, it's like things like that makes me think, why the fuck am I proud to be British sometimes, you know? Because keep in mind, those those mining companies, they were government owned, keep in mind.
Yeah.
Like, if Rwby had done like an event like that where it's like, oh, there was like a mining accident to that scale, I would have said, well done, like, it's a rip-off of Aberthane, but you know what? They actually went there,
Yeah.
In fact, they could have even gone one step further where it said like the humans' families were paid, but the faunus families were not paid.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was like a faunus only school, and like there was like a time of segregation in Atlas,
Yeah.
Like hell, it could have been something like that. But no, Miles and Kerry do not have. I don't care. They do not have the fucking balls to like. It's not like, oh, I'm a white man, so I can't write race. Fuck off. Like,
Well,
do you think? Hold on. Do they think that the creator of Beastars could write about, like, just because she was Japanese, she doesn't know how to write about racism? like the creator of Zootopia, he's white. So what? And yet he was able to write a good story about racism. Or the author of Rise of the Shield Hero couldn't. She's Japanese. She could write a fine story about, like, a fine plot line about race. It's just, sorry, it's just, fuck off, Miles.
Well,
I agree with you there. Like,
I'm sorry for getting a bit angry there, but it's just, motherfucker, like, I would genuinely like to meet Miles one day, so then I can ask him, how the fuck can you think like that? Like, how the fuck, how, like, it's impossible for you to have a brain if you legitimately think like that.
I think his brain's already. I think his brain died. I think his brain's in Twitter with his hot takes and whatnot. At this point,
Yeah, it's like,
how bad was that T for hot take? Ha!
yeah.
oh yeah.
And I still find it
And then of
retarded
course
that...
there's like George R. Martin, who is like one of the greatest storytellers of this generation. Like, he was able to write a better fucking he could fucking write racism, like with the wildlings, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I mean, technically they weren't black, or like they weren't a different race, they were basically just people who lived outside of the wall, but, you know, but there was still prejudice against them, and there was prejudice, and the wildlings had prejudice against the people from the south and the north. You know, like, George R. Martin was able to write that. He's fucking white.
You're forgetting the fact that he's also 22 at the time. Even though he probably should be in his late 20s, early 30s by now.
Yeah, like me personally, I don't really think age is a problem. Because it's like, you know, because it's like, okay, I live in London, like, I haven't seen much racism, I will admit, because, like, you know, London is very multicultural, but just basically used to seeing, like, a black person or a white person or whatever color of the rainbow that person is, to be honest. I can write a better story on fucking racism than, Miles and Kerry can.
The stupid part about that whole thing, though, like when they talked about the mining disaster, was Marrow stepping in, going like, "Oh, they used us as a cheap labor." But I know that you talk about the inequalities and stuff, and they just like they just cut and ran away from talking the deep theme.
Yeah, and they keep doing that with Marrow. Like, whenever Blake is in the picture, there's always Marrow with someone else, and they keep dodging the questions, the deeper questions, just for other nonsensical shit.
Yeah, you were saying, Justa?
Also, can we just talk about how racist Marrow is given the context of the world of Remnant? Okay, because think about it. The actors of the show and the writers as well, they talk to him. They talk about Marrow as if he's an actual dog, as if they want him to be his pet. He has a semblance called Stay. He has a weapon called Fetch. And he is a dog faunus. He also wags his tail, and he's the black person of the group. I'll give you about 10 seconds to realise why that is actually a big fucking problem, given the context of Rwby. It's like, Jesus Christ, it's like, fucking hell. Like, how can you fuck up this fucking much about, like, a simple story about racism? Like, I'm not gonna say it's, like, the easiest thing in the world to write, you know, but, you know, all you have to do is, like, see real-world examples. Like, hell, like, for example, in Colombia, and this is my country, by the way, like Colombians, we always talk smack about the Americans, you know? We always talk smack about them. We always say that, oh, you know, like, estúpidos gringos. So, but we literally have a name for them. Like, we literally have a derogatory name for them. Gringos. You know? Like, how? And like, you know, talking bad smack about the Americans is like basically, like, you know, not a normal thing for all South American countries. well, in Colombia in particular, because we're still a little bit pissy about the whole Panama thing.
Oh, because we sawed your country in half
Yeah.
to build that large ass canal.
The damn you, America!
But yeah,
Oh, yeah, and there's also the whole banana massacre thing, but, you know, if I talked about that, then that would take, like, a whole, you know.
yeah. And it's frustrating, like, you have all these events in history, and yet you take nothing from them.
Yeah, like, literally, the only thing they seem to take is, like, 1950, 1960s racism, and even then, it's not really a good allegory for them. Like, for example, like, hell, I could even make a, I can even, like, use real, like, better examples. Like, hell, how about, like, there actually be lynchings of Fortuna in Atlas, you know? Like, actual lynchings that, like, people go to as if it's, like, a fucking barbecue. Cause, okay, like, this is, cause, like, when I was first learning about races, like, 1950, like, the American, civil rights movement, like, the first thing, like, the teacher did in our first lesson was that, like, she basically had a picture of all these people, and she basically covered up the top half, and she asked us, you know, like, to write down what we thought these people were, you know, were doing. And most of us wrote down, oh, you know, they looked like they're maybe they're celebrating Independence Day, you know, maybe they're having a barbecue, maybe it's like a square dance thing or something, you know, we basically came up with answers like that, you know?
Yeah.
When she removed the top half of the top half that she had hidden, it was actually a bunch of black guys, like, just hanging there by a tree. They had been lynched. And, you know, and you can see people with smiles on their faces, like, people, I think there was one couple that were dancing and shit.
If I remember,
You know,
if I remember correctly, I believe that was at, I think that was probably during a point in the Great Depression where, yeah, there was lynchings of black people because whites wanted jobs, and unfortunately, if there was a black guy, they probably thought he stole their job, and thus, and was cheaper labor, so they hired the black guy, despite that not being true, and then, you know, guy got lynched right then and there, just on the assumption of, oh, that black guy must have taken my job because it's cheaper labor.
yeah, like, hell, and we even learned of the story of, oh fuck, I forgot this boy's name, but basically, he was like a 14-year-old kid from, I believe, Chicago, and he basically moved down to, like, see some relatives in Tennessee, and he like went to one of the stores in Tennessee, and there was like a white woman there, and like apparently he whistled to her or he winked at her. Well, it was nothing really that big, you know, and he was like a 14-year-old kid, and like he went home. And then the woman like told her boy, I think it was like her husband and her brothers about it, and they fucking like kidnapped him and essentially tortured him to death.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember that. I
Like,
just forgot the kid's
they
name.
literally gouged his eyes out for doing nothing other than, oh, he might have whistled at the woman, like the much older white woman, you know.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I think his first name was Edward or something.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either, but I definitely remember learning about that. And yeah.
Yeah, like that would have been a great, you know, that could have been like a good example to kind of build off of, you know.
Yeah, and given the fact that they went dark in Volume 3, and hey, by the way, I remember you telling me this, but didn't you say that during Volume 3 they were like they literally put up signs of the show saying this might be this season might be triggering for you because, you know, uncensored content?
Yeah, that's right. They put like a warning sign on the front of before they started every episode, I think, saying this season features blood and gore, so it will be very violent. So this is not
Not that even featured any blood. Like seriously, like that much. Like epic God of War, for fuck's sake.
Hell, Warframe has a lot more blood and gore in it, and apparently it's still able to be on YouTube.
See and here's the thing I find interesting with or with Volume 3 onwards when it comes to like violence and aggression and stuff. It just felt deconstructed all these characters as well. Like Adam was, they deconstructed his character basically.
And then rebuilt it on a
Exactly,
foundation that wouldn't work, especially with older
also,
fans.
can we also just talk about, like, quickly talk about how kind of this, like, I don't know about you guys, but I find it somewhat disturbing that they made, like, a character who was originally, like, whose original basis was racism into, like, an ex-boyfriend, to, like, change the story into, like, oh, evil ex-boyfriend.
Who was abusive only because we saw him hurt Blake, but only on the battlefield because that's how the abuse started, apparently.
And let's not forget the gaslighting, alleged gaslighting or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of like basically saying to the black community, oh, a story about racism isn't exactly inciting, so we're just gonna do a run-of-the-mill evil boyfriend storyline, you know? Because it's not like a storyline about racism is good or exciting. Like, am I the only one who finds that somewhat demeaning to, like, the minority, to, like, minorities and the black community in particular, especially when you consider the history of the civil rights movement, and that the whole honest racism plot was essentially based off of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it's just me, or maybe it's just because, you know, I'm a Londoner, and I was, like, brought up basically saying, no race is better than the other, each race is, you know, each race has their strengths, weaknesses, whatever, but, like, you treat all of them with respect, you know? And if that one person in that race is evil, doesn't mean the others are assholes or evil, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe it's just, you know, because I grew up with that, but I kind of find that change to be, like, very insulting, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Arte prides itself on being this progressive community, and yet in the time that they try and, you know, do a racism like this, they basically sweep it under the rug and say, oh yeah, that's not interesting. Let's go to this storyline about how Blake was abused even though she's the abuser. She acts more like an abuser than the abused, you know?
Yeah. And let's get on to Adam as well. Like, earlier, like, people say, oh no, Adam was always an abuser. Okay, tell me when. Volume 3, when he was smacking around Blake.
What about Volume 1, 2, and 3, and the Black trailer?
Can't you tell that, Blake was trying to get away from Adam because he was so abusive? No, she wanted to get away from the White Fang because they have turned against what she had originally thought they were about. And then when it comes to Adam, he was supposed to be a revolutionary, but then there's that drastic turn of events of where midway in the invasion of Vale, guess what? He all of a sudden turns from a guy that's caring about his men, who doesn't care about Blake being gone, because they could just easily move their camp elsewhere. But he starts saying, "My darling." Monty has stated that, and I don't have the tweet up, but I have it saved on my Twitter. But Monty, he stated that the Black Chair was to show a difference between master and apprentice. Guess who's the master and the apprentice?
Blake was the apprentice, Adam was the master.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See, here's the problem though when it comes to explaining racism and stuff, is the whole I think it's nuance. And it's also the fact that, like, which angle do you want to, which narrative do you use to explain the racism part though? Well, like, who's the go-between? Like, we know, we know that the White Fang are trying to be the next go-between since they've turned into a terrorist organization. Their reputation is shot to shit. Sir Gira is trying to be. Yes, I'm trying to be the go-between between humans and faunas because Sienna made a bad job at it.
Well, here's another thing about that, too. Sienna berated Adam about attacking Vale and Beacon. She was against the entire thing on purpose. She was set up to be someone who hated using violence unless it was absolutely fucking necessary. But nope,
Until...
the Adam trailer for Volume 6. Well, then again, it does represent her VA's tonal whiplash, too, so I wouldn't be surprised about that.
I want to just say that.
But it's true. Like in Volume 5, you cannot tell me that Sienna was visibly pissed at Adam for attacking Vale.
Oh, yeah. She was pissed.
And then she wanted to demote him, but all her men turned on him because apparently terrorism somehow fucking works.
Yep.
Right.
They're trying to make it into an anime thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, this is exactly why in my story I just wrote Sienna as like the evil one, you know?
The true
Where it's
evil
like-
one.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, because like in my story, basically my character, like, you know, she basically lives in a village where it's like human and faunus can both coexist, and they coexist quite well, you know?
Yeah.
In fact, her best friend is a human, you know? And her parents are like, her mother is a human and her father is a faunus, you know?
Yeah.
And then like the white gang come along to liberate the village, and it's like, oh, no, you know, we're fine. And like Sienna, like, you know, because like she kind of wanted to, because like she believed that faunists were better, and you know, and humans should pay for their crimes against oppressing them. You know what? Like she basically wanted the humans to pay and to have humans grovel under her feet. You know?
Yeah.
And so she was going to attack a village anyway, like an only faunus village anyway, in order to get her point across. But when she found my character's village, she was so incensed that she just says, "Fuck it, this is the village," and basically ordered like her part of the White Fang to essentially kill everyone there. And the only survivors were my character, because she managed to unlock her semblance, and her best friend's little sister, whom she took on as her own sister. And that basically made her, and you know, her, a spider faunus, basically went on a one-woman revenge quest of, you know, essentially wiping out the White Fang.
Yeah.
So she became Ellie.
But
No, a much better version of Ellie, because like, you know, she's espionage, she's like does shit like that, but she also like likes to torture her enemies as well. Like how, like, you know that Banesaw guy? Like Commander Banesaw or something like that?
from Volume 2, right?
Yeah. Like basically I had an entire, like, yeah, like her entire fight with him, like the entire fight with him, she makes him think that there's a small chance that he could, like, you know, stall her until like Adam comes along to save her. Like, save him, sorry. But it turns out, nope, she was holding back the whole time and basically just kills him in front of Adam.
Ouch. I mean, yeah. Like,
And then she throws his head to Adam.
yeah, like when I created my characters, it was to fix all the world building that Miles and Carrie could not do. I made a half human, half faunus who looked more human than faunus go on a super soldier rampage because his village was literally destroyed right in front of him, and he was left to watch and suffer as he saw his loved ones, his friends, his family die in front of him because some extremist asshole wanted to push a narrative that humans should be beneath them and killed. Either that or the females are to be used as breeding stock. And so he goes and so Atlas takes him in, and they take in other orphans like them because, you know, the White Fang are against Atlas because of the mining conditions and shit like that. And thus, the Atlesian Marine Corps was invented. super soldiers to go after the White Fang, and mind you, some of them are Faunists as well, but believe that the White Fang and the extremists are not actual Faunists. They're just Faunists in sheep's clothing, or wolves in sheep's clothing.
It's like a similar mindset to my character, where like she even calls the, where like she even like demeans like this, you know, like the soldiers of the White Fang, you know, like she, like, you know, and like and when Adam like asks her like why didn't she feel any, like why is she going against her brethren, she's like, why shouldn't, like, what brethren? You're nothing more than animals in human clothing. You're not Faunus. After all, you can't even control your own desire to kill. And then, of course, like, when Adam tries, like, the super move that my character just basically nopes the thing. Like, she basically tells him, this is a war. You're the soldiers, this is a war, poor Mr. Taurus. It's not like I'm just murdering an enemy. I'm just murdering from one enemy to another.
Yeah.
Like, that's what she says. Like, you know, she literally used her killing of the White Fang as basically her just killing a soldier. Like, this is a war, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, no one, like, admonishes as, like, a soldier for killing another soldier. Because, you know, again, it's war. You know?
Yeah.
And so she has a similar mindset. I mean, of course, like, she later learns that, like, you know, of course, like, you know, she goes through some growth as well, and, you know, and she becomes a little, and, like, well, she still hates the White Fang, you know, she slowly becomes to realize that, you know, not all of them join to kind of follow Sienna's vision, you know?
Yeah.
Hell, like, Sienna is even, like, outed out as, you know, the killer, as, like, the one who killed her village.
Yeah.
Essentially sent the orders to, like, destroy her village, and, you know, and then, like, she goes, and then, like, there's this whole thing in Atlas, and,
Alright, going to the chat, Sonic, Johnson 10 says, would it be more interesting if Adam was used as a disposable soldier like human... Sonic Johnson 10...
You're kind of cutting off there.
God damn it. Sonic Johnson 10 says, question, would it be more interesting if Adam was used as a disposable soldier like human debris in Iron-Blooded Orphans, to be used to fight battles and die on the battlefield? Think that would be good? Well, I'd say, like, Adam could have been something more along lines of the Spartan 3s from Halo. Except, you know, more racially driven. Obviously.
I mean, I say he should have been, like, at the very least, he should have been, like, Magneto from the X-Men, you know?
Yeah, that's what everyone thought and what he was set up to be.
Hey, guys, this just in, Joel Schumacher just passed away.
Joel?
Oh, Schumacher?
The guy who did the Batman, the one Batman and Robin movie that nobody talks about, nobody wants to talk about.
That's sad.
Oh, Batman and Robin. Oh, shit.
Remember bat nipples.
But yeah, like Adam was set up to be Ruby's Magneto, but nope. Turns out that was all a lie because he only wanted to be in charge of the White Fang in order to get to Blake. Which is retarded on so many fucking levels.
Although it's interesting how in the short, he was trying to prove to Adam, he was trying to prove to Gira, like, oh, these people are evil, I tells ya.
Well, when the humans attacked them, they were attacking them just to attack them. Now, that's good. Now, that would be good in oppression if only we had saw this 10 seconds sooner. Back in volume 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to fucking 5 to... and then to fucking 6 and 7.
Like how it would have been like okay, I can somewhat understand like the earlier volumes not having racism because it's set in Vale, and apparently Vale is like one of the less racist countries towards foreigners. But like it would have been great if like maybe one of the Atlesian or the kids from Mistral
Racially
like,
profiled.
maybe they were bullying like a Farness student from Beacon because of course they're a Farness.
Yeah.
And then you can have like the Vale and the Vacuo students like basically take disrespect to this because it's like Vale, it's like you don't just disrespect someone just because of their race, and and with Vacuo it's like like what the fuck are you doing,
Yeah.
And so you could have had like maybe even a fight between the two, and then and like that could have been like a big plot line in volume 2 where it's like you see Vale and Vacuo against Mistral and Atlas.
Yeah. And it's just so frustrating it's just so frustrating when we just want to see what the show has potential, but it keeps getting squandered at every turn for every idea it has. Things are brought up and then dropped the next season as if it didn't even exist.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier on, like, it is all the central theme, besides the social commentary in all of these volumes, is just deconstructing. Every volume is just deconstructing every character after character. Like Volume 5 was just basically deconstructing Raven and Adam. Volume 6 was basically deconstructing Crow, Oscar, and Ozpin, and Pyrrha, and possibly Ruby.
Barely
Volume
Rwby.
Barely Ruby.
Barely Rwby.
Okay.
Because
and then what we see in Volume 7 is just basically a deconstruction of Jacques, the Bumblebee Gang, more and Ironwood as well.
yeah,
It's
but
like, it feels like they're trying to make like every volume that goes on, they make each and every character worse,
yeah.
Like they're trying to, like the thing with Ruby, I've realized with all the fandom drama and stuff is that they're trying to challenge the view, like how we viewed in a high esteem of Monty's characters, and then comparing it to RT's version of these characters. It's like, okay, we're gonna challenge Monty's characters kind of thing, which is frustrating as flip.
Yeah, it's like, it's like all they had to do was keep the characters consistent to how they were in Volume 3, It's like, yeah, the characters need to develop and grow. I can understand that, But at the same time, it's like, it seems like they decreased as characters instead of, grown as characters. I mean, like, that could have been interesting, for, some of the, maybe for Ruby, to kind of cope with, everything that happened at Beacon. She becomes, she tries to become more childish because, she thinks her worldview is correct and she can't stand, her worldview being called into question, you know?
Yeah.
That could have been interesting, but they don't do that.
Yeah, and when it comes to Yang, they say, oh, she has PTSD and stuff like that. I mean, and I show Yang to my fellow Marines who have PTSD, and they're like, the way Yang reacts is not how PTSD works to a soldier who has been through trauma of killing someone for the first time. Or better yet, seeing one of their friends lose a fucking leg or limb. At all.
Okay, there's a fanfic out there. It's called Red Sun Over Beacon, and it's basically a much better retelling of Ruby. Except that, the only difference is that, Adam is there instead of Blake, you know?
Huh.
Yeah, but it's a much better retelling of Rwby, you know? And like you have, and like in volume 2, there's like the White Fang basically attacks Beacon, you know? And it's basically while all the students are asleep. And one of the attackers is one of Adam's old lieutenants, whose semblance is basically muffling sound. And by the end of the attack, like, you know, Adam is about to kill the guy, but he says, you know what, you're not even worth killing. But that's part of his plan, where he's going to try and entice him, so then, like, if anyone asks, he can say, oh, I killed him in self-defense. But as he's about to go in for the kill, Rwby steps in and, like, Rwby, not realizing what's going on, kills the, like, chops, like, literally slashes the guy in half, essentially, like, almost completely in half. And then Adam, like, you know, to kind of end his former lieutenant's misery, just kills him right then and there. But this, like, but this, like, changes Rwby to the point where, like, Adam, he tries to talk to Rwby about it, because, like, he feels partially responsible, and also because as being the leader of the White Fang, this is something he's always, you know, sort of had to do. Like, where he's had to tell, like, you know, his lieutenants, his, like, Ilya, and even Blake at one point, you know, it was in self-defense. They did what they needed to do to live. Of course, like, he says it's a lot harder because, like, unlike those times, he could always give them a mask for them to hide behind. He can't do that with Rwby.
Yeah.
And so, like, of course, he talks to Rwby about it, you know, and, like, and while Rwby is still a little disturbed by it, you know, she comes to, like, she basically says, you know, I did what I had to do, you know, which was trying to protect you. And, you know, and Yang isn't happy about it because at first she thinks, oh, Adam killed someone in front of Rwby, not realizing it was her sister who had technically done the killing.
Yeah.
Like, well, like, I mean, like I said, Return of the Beacon is it's not just a good fanfic, it's a much better version of Rwby.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly wish this was the actual version of Rwby, because it is that good. You know, every character, like, Rwby in that, because, like, keep in mind, it's halfway through Volume 3 at this point. Rwby, Rwby the character has developed more in those, like, in that story than she has in the entirety of the official show. But yeah, but like, seriously, to anyone who's listening, go to fanfic.net and just read Return of the Beacon, because it is an amazing fucking story.
Yeah.
Sorry for going a little fangirly there.
It's alright. And I think this is probably where we should end it there then.
Alright.
Dinner is calling. But maybe we'll pick this up again another time. And continue further.
Mm-hmm.
Good grief, this is probably gonna be our first 3-parter.
Alright.
And now the epic conclusion to this volume.
Alright, well, it's been fun doing this, guys.
It's
So,
also been fun.
alright, well, bye, guys.
Have fun.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.